Well, you know what? I'm so glad we got rid of him when we could. But thanks so much, Durga.
A new art exhibit rolled on campus today, literally. The USC Pacific Asia Museum brought the artist and his work from Grand Trunk Road in Pakistan right here to USC. Haider Ali's paintings are not on your typical canvas. He's been painting on trucks since he was 7 years old, like his father and grandfather. The traveling works of art are common in Pakistan, with artists turning streets into national galleries.
It's a way of them remembering where they're from, keeping their identity. They have little bits like a flower or a bird from their area in it. So it almost is like taking a little bit of home with you and showcasing it all through the route.
This is really an authentic articulation of what folk art looks like in Pakistan. And so for students to see it right here in the heart of Los Angeles saves them a trip to Lahore.
Right now in Pakistan, in our country, there's a lot of political problems going on. So I think truck art is a really awesome way for people to express themselves, bring joy out in people.
That's all we have tonight. Thanks for watching Annenberg TV News. From everyone at ATBN, I'm Anna Sterling.
And I'm Kim Leffler. You can watch us on the.org. Good night.
Heart disease affects 1 in every 3 women in America, but you can fight back. There's no time to lose. Mothers, sisters, daughters, families, and friends, it's time to shout louder, stand stronger, and demand change.
Let's go!
To the Batmobile. Dang it.
To the invisible jet.
Dang it.
Together, we can put an end to heart disease. It's time to go red for women.
I could use your help.
Yeah! Learn more from the American...
Good evening, Trojans, and welcome to another Tuesday episode of CU at USC. I'm your host, Haley Spence-Brown, and today I'm joined in the studio by Thomas R. Williams, a former NFL linebacker who led the Trojans to 2 national championships and 4 Rose Bowls. He's here to talk about his new book, Permission to Dream. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Trojans. I'm sitting in the studio with Thomas R. Williams. Thomas, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Haley. I appreciate it.
We really are glad to have you. Let's just jump right in. You used to be a football player for USC and for the Jaguars. Is that correct? During your time at USC, did you think you were going to go on to the NFL?
I think for me, coming to college, number 1 was to get a degree, and then number 2, I think came to the school at such a great time where we were winning national championships, Rose Bowls, and you always want to go to the NFL. I think that was one of the reasons why guys chose USC over other schools, because they had a track record of taking guys from college to the NFL ranks. And so I always wanted to, I just wasn't always sure that I would go to the NFL.
Yeah. What made you not give up? What made you keep going through that?
Well, it was my dream since I was a kid. I remember the first dream and the first time I ever prayed or closed my eyes and said, "Nah, lay me down to sleep" when I was a kid. It was, God, please let me be a professional athlete. And so ever since I was 8 years old, I wanted to become a professional athlete. At the time, I wanted to be a professional baseball player, but I'll settle for being a professional football player as well. So yeah, to not give up, it was something it's not in me to give up, and to exhaust all opportunities and all options before giving up, if you will.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about your childhood. Where did you grow up, and what was it like?
So I'm originally from Northern California, by the ways of Fort Riley, Kansas, and I grew up in a small town called Vacaville, raised by my mom as well as my grandparents, and went to a small high school called Vacaville High School.
Bulldogs?
And the Bulldogs, yeah, black and orange. And so from there I came and traveled down Interstate 5, and made it here to USC.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what were some of the obstacles that you faced growing up? Was there anything that that had an influence on who you are today?
I think so. I think being biracial in the predominantly white community, that was tough for me as a child, because you want to fit in so bad. Like, who am I? Where do I fit in? Whose clique am I in? And today I think that it served me really well, because I feel that I can get along with anybody, and I can go anywhere, whether it's here at USC or even that school across the street, UCLA. But being able to fit in anywhere has served me well, and so I'm appreciative for that experience as a kid. Also, the experience of not really coming from too much as a kid, and then having to work extremely hard. So when I was young, my mom used to clean houses, and so I would see her every single day, wake up and go clean people's houses. Many times houses that were to the size of that we all dream of having one day, like the Bel Air size houses. And I never remember her complaining, ever. Wow. She would never complain and say, I can't today, or I'm too tired. Or even when she was finished, she'd come home and she'd pick me up, and she'd take me to practice, or we'd hang out, just mom and myself. And she never complained or used the excuse that I'm too tired. And she'd wake up and do it the next day and the next day and the next day.
It sounds like your mom was pretty influential in your life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm the watered down version of like hard work.
Oh boy, there you go. Well, who were some of your other influences? Was there anyone back in Vacaville or any professional athletes that you idolized or helped influence you?
Yeah, so growing up, I was a huge Jackie Robinson fan, as well as Muhammad Ali. And my high school coach was a huge mentor for me, and now he's the principal of Vacaville High School.
Great.
And also my mom's boyfriend at the time, whose name is Ron, he taught me how to throw my first curveball, taught me how to hit a baseball, and really taught me a lot of fundamentals to sports, and gave me a really valuable lesson when I was younger, and told me that it's more important for people to respect you as a man than as an athlete.
What made you make the switch from baseball to football?
So the funny story behind that is I played on a traveling team in 8th grade, and we were in a tournament all the way out in Tennessee. And I remember it was kind of like the semifinals game, and I was on second base, and a ground ball hit the right field, got through the infield. I'm rounding third, coming around home, and the catcher was about 3 or 4 feet up the foul line, and he was in my way, and it just was a natural reaction for me to lower my shoulder and to run him over. And I didn't mean to harm him or hurt him or anything, but what happened was I ran him over, and that feeling of accomplishment and then just that natural aggression took over, and I remember feeling, wow, it was almost like my soul just leaped out of my body and said, finally, we're doing something fun. And I remember going home back to Vacaville after the tournament, and I told my mom, we were doing laundry in the garage, and I told my mom, I said, I think I want to play football. And she said, really? She said, well, what made you change your mind? Because I was wholeheartedly baseball. Don't want to get hurt playing football because I'm a baseball player. And she said, what changed your mind? And I said, Mom, it felt so good to be physical finally. And so another reason that why I chose football, because for that summer, I didn't want to be home alone because all my friends were playing. And as an only child, you know, I seek that approval and then friendship from my closest friends, and they were like my brothers. And so if they're going to be at practice during the summer and I'm going to be at home by myself, then what am I going to do? Who's going to play with me? So I chose and decided to play football. I'll give it a try until baseball season came around. And then baseball season came around, and I remember that my new love and passion was football.
Yeah. Well, it worked out for you, it seems like.
It did.
So when you were here at USC, you were coached by, it was Carroll, right? Pete Carroll?
Yes.
And what was your relationship with him like? That must
Coach
have been
Carroll.
great.
Well, first of all, Coach Carroll is exactly who we see on television.
Oh, really?
Day in and day out, energetic. I think he's somewhere in his 60s, but he acts like he's 25. I mean, he is that energetic, that passionate, and just loves to compete constantly. And he's always trying to find a way to find matchups or some type of competition, whether it's push-ups, rock, paper, scissors, video games, or on the football field. So he was extremely influential in the man who I am today, because there's always an opportunity to maximize your abilities or the opportunity that presents itself, and to be extremely present in the moment.
Yeah. Now, do you have any funny stories about him that you can tell us without getting into too much trouble?
A funny story about Coach Carroll. Funny story about Coach Carroll was after we won the Orange Bowl in 2005, we're in Miami, and the next day you fly back, and we're flying back to LA, and so Coach Carroll gets on the intercom before we get ready to take off, and he says, guys, when we get back to LA, there's kind of going to be a parade and a little party for us, so just, you know, sleep now, rest up for it, and be excited when we get there. And so the plane's getting ready to take off, and we're on, you know, next up, you know, Miami to LA, and so Coach Carroll puts 2 pieces of paper underneath his feet, and he stands in the aisle. And so as the plane's getting ready to take off, here comes Coach Carroll flying down the middle of the aisles and jumps into somebody's lap. I mean, he was just that kind of guy.
Kinda crazy
just
guy.
wants to have fun, works extremely hard, but enjoys the whole entire process.
Yeah. Now, I read somewhere that he was a Grateful Dead fan, and he included references while he was coaching. Is that true?
Yes, Coach Carroll was, I should say, is extremely talented with the piano. I mean, he's one of those guys who can hear a song, hear a beat, hear a melody, and he can play it instantly. And so he would reference everything from Outkast to Little John to P. Diddy. I mean, if you can hear it, then he's going to reference it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about your time playing football here at USC. What was your schedule like as a student when you were playing football?
I just found this out, that the average football player spends roughly anywhere from 45 to 50 hours a week in their sport. And that doesn't mean just on the field, that means all aspects of it, right? Lifting weights, training, and watching film and all of that. And then you spend on average like 15 hours per week on your schoolwork. And so that's what, 65 hours a week of dedicated to the reason why you came here was to get an education, and then also another reason is to play sports. And so the whole entire time was just school, football. When you're not doing one, you're doing the other. And I remember a lot of sleepless nights trying to either watch film, get better, get to know your opponent a little bit better, and then also trying to stay caught up as far as your grades.
Yeah, that must have been pretty challenging.
It was, and I'm grateful for it. And like we were talking about before, now I get a chance to be a fan. Now I get a chance to do the experiences that I never had an opportunity to do before. And so I'm glad that I took care of it the way the first time, because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't maximize that opportunity and either have to come back and go to school or either don't take full advantage of it when they have it.
Exactly. So now when you were here, you were a sociology major.
Correct.
And how did that impact what you do today?
So at the time I didn't know it, but I have to be honest with you. I chose sociology from the first day because they said it was the easiest. It was the least demanding. But to come to find out now that I'm so grateful and appreciative for that, because we connect on so many different levels. And what I do as a motivational speaker and then as a TV sports analyst is connecting with whether it's the people who I'm working with closely or the audience. And so that experience and the teachers and professors that I had taught us so much about what is somebody saying even when they're not saying anything.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. So now after you were a student here at USC, you went on to the NFL. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the Combine or anything that stood out?
Well, the experience at the Combine, it wasn't the greatest experience. I probably ran one of the slowest times as a linebacker. I mean, this is one of the biggest job interviews you'll ever go on. And I performed the worst possible performance at the perfect time, I guess, if you will. And didn't perform well, thought my dreams and hopes of going into the NFL were over and shot. And then the next 5 weeks I spent preparing profusely. I mean, actually read the first book that I read cover to cover my entire life, which was Zig Ziglar's "See You at the Top." And so I remember how I was thinking after the Combine, and I was thinking horrible thoughts and that I would never make it and I was a failure. And I remember in the book Zig Ziglar talked about stinking thinking. And so all of your negative thoughts, throw them away. And so I'd write my negative thoughts. Thomas, you're too slow. You're not tall enough. You're not strong enough. And I'd write them down on a piece of paper, and I'd crumple them up, and I'd throw them in the trash. And I remember from that time at the Combine to Pro Day, which was held here at USC, my times and my performance, it just inclined, and it really increased my chances and the opportunities for me to play in the NFL.
Did that book affect the career choice that you made after the fact?
I would say so. Yeah. Because when I stopped playing football, I wrote down on a piece of paper, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And I said, I want to have the amount of impact and influence people had on me to the entire world. And I think with that book, it had such a huge impact on my life and my outlook, and then the understanding of the positive self-talk and the things that we say is actually what we do.
Now, it was a neck injury that caused you to leave the NFL. How's your neck today?
My neck today, it's okay.
It's okay.
Every now and again, I get reminded that I played football for a long time, but living here in Southern California with this amazing weather, I don't get pains and aches like I would if probably lived in the colder parts of the United States.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but after we will talk to Thomas about his book, so stay tuned. Perfect. So we're going to take a quick commercial and then...
That is fascinating. I had no idea that's why they called it ice cream. Well, stay tuned for the rest of our Welcome back to Trojan Vision.
Trojan Vision? I love Trojan Vision!
We're about to continue our fascinating interview with the famous cat hairstylist, Joan Duffy. Please, tell me, how did you get started with your cat hairstyling business? It wasn't
Welcome back, Trojans. And before we continue, I'd like to remind you to go to Twitter and follow CUatUSC. You can find us at twitter.com/CUatUSC. So we're back in the studio with Thomas R. Williams. Thomas, you are a motivational speaker now. That's what you decided to do after you left the NFL. How did you make that transition?
It's a very interesting question. How did I make that transition? And the answer is simple. It's as a middle linebacker on the football field, what you do is you stand in front of 10 people and you get them to see or feel what I guess is not so obvious, whether it's the score, the down and distance, the temperature, the climate, and you get them to believe that something that isn't possible or something that isn't visible can actually happen. So my job was to be basically the the mediator between the defensive coordinator and then the 10 other players on the football field. And now my job is to take what the clients who hire me to come in and speak to their executives, or whether it's the athletes or the students or the U.S. military, and get them to understand the same thing, break it down into a language or a terminology which we can communicate on almost a one-on-one type setting. So for me, I'm still a middle linebacker. The only thing I don't do is I just don't tackle or hit.
That's very, very true, I guess. Going into these big audiences, who is your target audience? Who do you like to speak to the most?
I really enjoy speaking to the underdog. I think because I can relate so much to being an underdog, I say that I want to inspire the underdog until it becomes the top dog. And so for me, so many times in my life, I didn't believe in myself or abilities. If you would have said, Thomas, I promise you, you will be a professional athlete by the time you're 23. When I was 10 years old, or even when I was 15, I would have probably looked at you like you were crazy. And so for me, I want to do the same thing for every single audience. And so I do corporate speaking, whether it's an off-site, or I do speaking to United States military, specifically the Wounded Warriors Project, as well as senior officers, and then young entrepreneurs who are just getting started, who have to basically grow a callus or get accustomed to rejection. And then also students, like asking students the students and athletes, asking them the question of extremely simple, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And it's so hard. Sometimes we can't answer that question. And so being able to pull it out of them and really being able to ask them what they want to do and helping them find the answer.
Yeah. How do you make sure your message gets across? Is there something that you do continuously to make sure that people are receiving?
I think it's how I really try and relate to the audience is I do so much reading and research. Before every engagement, I read up as much as I can on who the audience is, so that I can speak in their language. And then also I don't ever try and speak at anyone. I try and speak with everyone. And so there's just something in the room too, like an energy, and you can feel it, that you're connecting and you're captivating the audience. Yeah. And you also just having conversations before, just like we're doing right now. I always try and have conversations with people who are going to be in the audience, and I ask them about their day, or what are they trying to take away from this specific event or engagement. And it seemed to work out thus far great.
Yeah, it sounds like it's really working out for you. So you mentioned earlier that you did work with the Wounded Warriors. Can you tell us a little bit more about this and how you got involved?
Yeah, so my marketing and department inside of my company, they reached out to the United States military, a couple different bases, whether it was in Oklahoma, in Arizona, and in California. And so they asked me to come and speak to the Wounded Warriors at their military bases. And what I found is that there's so much of a similarity between the transition from out of the military to civilian life, and so much similarities between a former athlete and now you have to transition outside of sports, what to do. I mean, you've been told for, let's just say, 20 years in the military what to do, what time to wake up, how to train, what to eat, where to go, what to do. And the same thing with being an athlete. So for me, my story was able to, the soldiers were able to identify with my story because there's so much fear, and there's fear in the unknown. Who's going to make my breakfast for me today? What time am I supposed to go to bed? What am I supposed to do on my own when I've been told what to do for more than half of my life? So that was how I got set up with the United States military.
Now, you address a lot of these challenges that you're mentioning in your book.
Correct.
What inspired you to write this book? When did you decide you were going to sit down and write it out?
So when I retired, I started writing the book exactly 1 year after I retired. And I would go to different engagements, and people seemed like they were the only one who had difficult situations or circumstances. And they would say, well, it's easy for you to say, Thomas, because you played at USC or you played in the NFL. And so I wanted to share my story with the entire world, because people see celebrities or people who have a great amount of success where they are. They don't see where they've been. like I tell people all the time, I don't look like where I've been. And I wanted to write a book to share that you can make it out of any situation that you want to if you just decide, if you just choose that there is a dream that lives deep down inside of you. And so I wanted to inspire people that it doesn't matter where you come from. That has no reflection, or it doesn't have any type of inclination of what you can possibly do. And I think that's why I love what I do so much, because we are only utilizing a quarter or a half of what we're actually capable of doing.
Well, we're very lucky that you wrote all this down and are helping us learn from it. What made you title the book Permission to Dream? Was there a logic behind that?
Yeah, I think for me, in my childhood and in most of my young adult life, I was looking for acceptance. And then the more and more I started to communicate and connect with people, is that we're looking for affirmation. We're looking for somebody to say, you can do this, right? Whether you have a job and you're asking your employer, can I take the day off? Can I kind of venture out into this idea, and can I further go into this option? And whether you're a student, you ask the teacher for permission to use the restroom, or can I have, can I have this topic? Everything that we're looking for permission. And so for me to title this Permission to Dream is because I really believe that we all have permission to dream.
Exactly. Now, what was the process like while you were writing this book? Was there a process that you followed? Was it surprising at all to you?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. I mean, the time it took to write this book was about 11 months. And so I know that doesn't sound as long as a lot of people write books, but I was probably working on this book anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week, so for 11 months. And it was extremely difficult to go back and relive certain parts of my life that I'd worked so hard to forget. And that was difficult. But what I kept telling myself was that if I can change just one life, just based off the writings of this book, then it's worth it. So for me, it was a long, hard, difficult process.
What were some of the other challenges that you faced besides it being long and difficult? And
when you write a book, and you have to go back and you have to read over the chapters, and you have to reread, your mind starts to play tricks on you. And so there would be eyes in the book where there weren't eyes, and I would just assume. But I'm so lucky that I had an editor and a story specialist to help me, and I had about 5 sets of eyes. So they would help me a lot, and so it was difficult. I mean, could you imagine? You just keep rereading the same thing over and over until you finally say, "Okay, I'm finished. Okay, I'm done." But I was challenged by a lot of people who were helping me with the book, and they were telling me, "Don't quit and give up, because you have the possibilities to change lives."
I'm sure a lot of college students can relate on a smaller scale when we reread our essays and things like that. So what are you hoping that people will take away from your book when they read it? Is there something that you want people to, a message that you really want them to learn?
Yes, I want people to understand that where they are can be changed by where they want to be. And so by reading this book, understanding that your past is where it is in the past, and your present is the opportunity to change, and then your future gives you hope, so that you can better your life if you choose, and that you don't have to stay exactly where you are.
How did it feel seeing it on the shelves for the first time back in September?
Oh my gosh. It's still an unbelievable accomplishment. Out of everything I've done in my life thus far, this is probably the most proud I've been of myself. Because in the 6th grade, I was told I was supposed to be shot, stabbed, killed by the time I was 16. And at 29 years old, when you have an opportunity to place your book on the shelves at the bookstore where you went to college, and now it's being sold, is an unbelievable feeling, because we've all been told that we can't do it, or we've all been told that it's probably not going to happen. And so if it isn't proof to just me, but proof to every single person out there, that if somebody tells you no, work hard enough until you find a yes. and that's what took place.
That's great. That's a great message. Now, before we finish this up, I wanted to ask you really quickly. Right now, the World Series is going on, and I know you're a baseball fan. Who are you rooting for?
I better be politically correct and say the Giants because I'm from Northern California.
Yeah.
But I was born in Fort Riley, Kansas. So you know, and like I said before, with the whole rooting of the underdog, I know it's been, what, 30 years or 29 years for the Royals to make it to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I would love to see them win. I think that that's awesome because then it gives them hope.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all the time we had for today's episode of See You at USC. Tune in tomorrow for another awesome episode. Thanks for watching.